Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of the term. I hope everyone is feeling rested and ready for the new year ahead. We're really excited this evening to be hosting our first webinar, and I am joined by the lovely Nina Jackson. Nina, have you had a good summer?
I've had a fantastic summer, thank you. And yourself?
I have. It's been a busy one for us because the schools are closed, so we've been busy updating our website and all the new material. But it's an exciting couple of months, and we're looking forward to coming out to so many global educators and visiting schools. So lots to look forward to. And I know that you're raring to go for
I am indeed.
tonight's webinar with lots of practical tips for global educators. So wherever you are in the world, we're hoping that you're able to take something away from tonight and you're able to share it with colleagues, because that's what it's all about, sharing best practice. And do let us know. I always say, do let us know how it goes. If you tried a particular strategy or tip in the classroom, do come back to us and let us know how that's worked for you. We are taking questions towards the end of the webinar. Nina, you definitely said that's okay. So we are going to be taking some questions at the end of the webinar. So do post your questions to us and we will try to get through as many as we can. And I will just be talking to you about some of our updates and news as well from Vima Education. So I think that's enough from me. We're super excited to be here with Nina this evening. So over to you, Nina.
Thank you, Costa. And good evening, everybody. And I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be with you this evening. Wherever you are globally, welcome to our first ever Vima webinar for this academic year. And what I'd like to share with you this evening, and I hope that you'll come on the journey with me, are some back to school tips for you, the most important people in the world who are global educators. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I'm a Vima teaching and learning consultant, author and keynote speaker, and my specialist areas are wellbeing and special education needs, inclusion and diversity, as well as being a pastoral and pedagogical champion and embracing everything really to do with effective and impactful teaching and learning globally. If you'd like to follow us at Vima on Twitter, we're at Vima Edu, Vima Education on Facebook, and of course on LinkedIn as well. So let's kick off our evening. First of all, I'd like to welcome you back into the academic year, because for some of you, you will have already been back for quite a number of weeks now, especially if you're tuning in from Europe or Asia or whatever. You'll have been back since probably the middle of August. But I just want to remind you that I think what we do is so important, because we have this amazing opportunity to literally craft the lives of the future, these children that we work with, to really give them some quite remarkable experiences in teaching and learning, in wondering about the world, in gathering knowledge, skills, strategies, to be able to put these into practice, not just now in the classrooms with you, but in their wider lives in future. And we know that obviously we've got some amazing parents and colleagues that we work with too, who are beside us. They support us. Sometimes they're good days and sometimes they're bad days. But, you know, welcome to the world of humanity. And that's what real living, but trying to be a remarkable human being really is. So I'd like you to, first of all, take a moment and think about this. I'm sure before you returned to school that you were probably both excited and very nervous at the same time, because you know what that break does to us. First of all, it makes us eat lots of things because we're not strict by the time of the school. Secondly, hopefully, even in the first couple of weeks, we start to unwind a little bit. And we suddenly realise we're going to go back into a very structured system, because that's what schools are. They're very structured. They're structured by time. They're structured by lessons, by timetable. and getting your planning ready and getting yourself, your own mindset into gear to go back to school can be really, really overwhelming. So what I'd like to suggest to you is this. If you at any point, not just going back to school becoming overwhelmed, but even on a Sunday or a Saturday, if you're working globally and you start your school day on a Sunday, I want you to put things into perspective. I want you to realise that you have two things running. You have your life running and you have your work running. And what we need to be looking at is to actually get that work-life balance absolutely solidly balanced rather than tipping all the time, so that work is up there and life is down here and you're neglecting your family and you're neglecting yourself. So please just take those moments to really put into perspective the fact that you've got two things that you need to balance: your life, that is outside of school obviously, and what you do in school. I think far too often we believe that we have to do things by a certain time, and we put way too much pressure on ourselves, which then obviously causes some anxiety, and then maybe we're not our good selves to be in classrooms with the children and the young people. And more than anything, you know as well that these lovely little children and young people of the world will come to you and be probably even more overwhelmed than what you are. So I want you to take moments, okay? When you're feeling you're getting a little bit overwhelmed, just take some very simple moments to reflect on what's really, really important to you. Never, ever underestimate the fact that you have to get the balance right. So I'd like us to look at the 3 Ps, okay? With regards to tips for going back to school, looking at planning. And I don't necessarily mean lesson planning, but I mean you planning things in a more strategic way so that you can manage work much better. Preparation, you being prepared for lessons, both emotionally, psychologically, and physically. Preparation with regards to content, preparation with regards to well-being, and more than anything, pocket your passion. Now, what do I mean by pocket your passion? Well, as a teacher, no doubt, you would be very, very passionate either about your subject or about the key stage or the phase or your role in education. And sometimes when we're overwhelmed or we're feeling overworked, we tend to lose that passion a little bit and we forget why it is that we came into education. I mean, there's a line, isn't there? Oh, I definitely want to make a difference. I don't think anybody comes into education without wanting to make a difference. And what you really need to know that with your passion and your dedication and your commitment and also your realism of being your real self with young people, that sometimes you will lose that passion a bit. But if you pocket it and you think to yourself, right, on those really sort of odd moments when I may be losing that little bit of fizz, just put your hand in your pocket or put your hand in your bag to remind yourself why you came into education. So let's have a look at back to school ideas for planning. No doubt, many of you will have bought yourself a new teacher planner, or your school may have given you one, or you may have a school one and you'll have bought one for yourself, because teachers are rather obsessed with stationery, aren't they? And managing your time, meetings, managing the work meetings, managing your life meetings are absolutely crucial. Also, very quickly and skimmingly planning your lessons or planning a future event or an extracurricular activity. But having that overview of the plan for the term as well is a really, really good idea. And what do I mean by prepare or preparation? Get your mindset in the right place first of all. Don't overburden yourselves with hundreds and hundreds of things to do. Many of you will absolutely adore doing bullet points, things that you can tick off. Many of you will just have the ideas in your head, But most importantly is prepare yourself, on a daily basis, prepare yourself with a short-term vision of what you want to achieve in the week, with a longer vision for the month, and an even bigger vision for the whole term. Within that preparation, set your key dates, and that means it could be your birthday. And if it's your birthday, then I hope that you're going to prepare to have a really amazing evening, or an afternoon, or a day off if it's on the weekend. But you don't just prepare your school, but you also prepare your life as well. And that's where you'll begin to get that really good balance, so that work-life balance doesn't tip in either way. And always remember that when you're having those off days, and we all get them, I get them, Costa gets them, many of the other Vima associates get them as well, remind yourself, what is your passion within your job? Is it the fact that you absolutely adore the interaction between the children and the young people? Is it the fact that you have an amazing passion for your subject? Whatever it is, pocket it, keep it safe, and when you need to dip into it because you've lost that little bit of fizz, then remind yourself of why you came into education. So let's move on to thinking about managing your workload. That is probably one of the most difficult things any global educator is currently tackling: workload. So how many of you already are worried about the amount of books that you've got to mark, the amount of assessments that you need to do, the tests that you need to be marking, the meetings that you need to attend, the write-ups, the emails, the phone calls, the meeting, and I could go on and on and on. And if I listed those for you several times, I'm sure many of you would choose to leave the webinar because you'd be thinking, this is too much, Nina. You are really playing with my head because you're reminding me of lots of things that I need to do. So let's think about managing the workload. I want you to really consider from that other slide about your planning. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a tip. I suggest that at least twice a week that you make a date with yourself. You put in a planned meeting with yourself and nobody else, because nobody is ever going to say to you, if you say, I can't come then, or I can't do that because I've got a meeting, nobody's going to say to you, well, you need to cancel that meeting, because there's a real power behind the word meeting. So nobody knows that you're having a meeting with yourself, but that's your well-being time to either reflect upon your successes that you've done during the week or you've achieved over the month, but it's also time for you to really put yourself first, because we need those reflective moments to be able to manage the piles and piles of things that we need to do. Turn your devices off at a chosen set time that's suitable for you. In our house, what we do, we have an ADO, which is an all devices off after a certain time. That can mean, if I know I'm expecting a very important conference call, that can mean that it goes on silent, but that I check it, say 5 minutes before the conference call is due. But generally, all devices tend to go off, because we've got this need currently in society and culturally that if somebody texts us or somebody emails us or our notifications are on for social media, that we suddenly become very important. Oh, I need to respond to that because they've either sent it to me and they need me to be able to let them know what's going on. That's work. And if that is work that's associated with the school, you need to stop. But if it's a choice with regards to interacting with people on social media, or whether it's a choice to text a friend, that's absolutely fine. And when I talk about the workload of the old devices, I'm also talking about emails. Maybe your school has a policy where you do not need to respond to emails after a given time in the evening. I would also suggest that if you're choosing to send out emails to other people, that you schedule those emails. The best practice I've seen globally is where head teachers will say to their staff, I may send you an email, but I do not expect you to respond to that email in an evening after, say, 6 o'clock. For some people who've got families, they may find that actually they need to work a little bit later in the evening, and that's a personal choice. But with regards to digital and electronic connection, my advice to you is that as a school, you come to an agreement of what is acceptable and not acceptable. Because when you are physically out of your school environment, apart from the planning, apart from the marking, then you shouldn't necessarily have to deal with the massive amounts of emails, social groups. Even some schools have WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. I mean, it's enough of a job keeping up with your social media status as a human being, not just being as well as being a teacher. Other ways as well is prioritise your tasks. There are things I call that are they're called ticklers. Okay, now I'm sure many of you right now are probably thinking, what does she mean by ticklers? Well, what ticklers are, they're those tiny little coloured post-it notes that you can put on the end of a book, and you can prioritise the colours as you can with different things or different folders or different jobs that you need to do. And what's quite funny sometimes is when you move your finger up and down those little tabs, it looks as if you're tickling the little tabs. And it's something that teachers find quite funny. And when they look at the amount of work they've got and they just go up and down like that on the tabs that are flicking out, it just gives them a couple of minutes to have one of those sort of joyful moments rather than going, I've got all of this stuff to do and I just don't know how to manage it. Choose as well to say to people, I'm really sorry, but I'm not available at that time. Or in fact, just cut out the word sorry, I won't be available at that time. Because if you learn how to manage your workload with the word no and not the word sorry attached, think about the old devices off, think about managing your social media, your emails, and also your diary, then simple little things like that can really, really change that balance. And remember now, we do not want the whole workload part to be weighing you down there. We want that balance between workload, job, and life. So in this short webinar, I know these are very simple tips for you, but something at Vima that we do is that we run whole sessions on teacher wellbeing and workload. And if you're interested in that, then obviously you can get in touch with us. My other little tip for you is this. When we go back to school and we know that we have X amount of lessons to teach and they're within this topic area or they have to cover this for the exam, sometimes we forget the creativity. And I want you to think about embracing your creativity as a teacher, to be creative in your approaches, to be creative in the use of language, to be creative in the way that you use or don't use resources, be creative in your classroom setup. I mean, even think about the lighting, the mood. Are you playing effective music to be able to set the scene of the classroom? Are you introducing some digital media? Are you maybe somebody who could be quite clever at using different voices? Might you be putting on different voices to introduce the lesson? Might you even not introduce the lesson at all, but to use a short clip or a video where you don't have to speak, but the device speaks for you? And there are many, many different ways that we can be creative. And just in itself, if we ask ourselves, what does creativity mean to me? That means actually making something that's out of the norm of your own sort of, shall we say, four-sided box. And somebody once said to me, you know, things that are in a box, things that are out of the box. And then somebody actually from Cyprus said to me, yes, but Nina, what if there's no box? And that whole idea of what if there's never been a box? Then that in itself is quite creative. So you may even want to introduce some philosophical questions into your classrooms. For example, is a broken down car parked? Or does a thick tip felt pen flow faster than a thin tip felt pen? Or get the children to create philosophical questions. Or maybe use some mantle of the expert approaches. Or even just be creative and leave a little mission card for students on the desk. Say nothing, but just leave a mission card. Maybe you want to be creative by saying to students that we're actually not going to be using any of our exercise books at all. We're actually going to drive the whole lesson through discussion, presentation, thinking, sharing, showing, using audio, using video, and the plethora of applications that we have out there to be able to access creativity in the classroom. And this is a short webinar, but curiosity, awe and wonder is something that you can also embrace. I think we tend to lose it a little bit when we go into secondary school, or rather maybe the children are not so open to embracing awe and wonder. But I want you to think about that last experience that you had when it was like that moment, because you'd either learned something new or had an emotional experience, all from learning from somebody else. And that could be a teacher, it could be a friend, a colleague, or somebody who's even sharing with you a great new book, or maybe even a research article. I know that there are many teachers that when they're doing some storytelling or writing or mathematical conundrums, that they would sometimes actually blank things out to get the children to be very creative in putting in alternative possibilities. So it's massive. The whole idea of being creative is absolutely huge. But as it says on the screen then, to imagine, to create and to learn. And I think that sometimes imagination can be one of the most magical things that we can instill in our young people so that they can truly live remarkable lives and not be scared of taking risks. So let's have a look at the next sort of tips I want to speak to you about, which are support networks. Do you have a strong support network in your school? Do you have a strong support network at home? And if you have a good support network in school, then are they designated people or are they purely your colleagues / friends? We all need support networks. We all need to have that sense that we are connected, we're part of community cohesion, and that we belong. If we don't have a sense of belonging, then we begin to question, well, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm not just doing it just for the children and young people. I'm doing it for us as a global teaching community so that we can enhance the lives of the young people for the future. So I want you to think about really tapping into your support networks when you're having maybe a bit of a difficult day. There's nothing better, either in a staff room or with a friend, actually just venting, saying, oh my gosh, I'm just telling you, I've just had the most crazy lesson. The noise in there was just dreadful. They didn't seem to be working in groups as they should have been doing. Somebody was doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. Somebody else was doing this. And we can feel really, really overwhelmed. And even though you will have planned the lesson meticulously and literally step by step, you knew what was going to happen, we never know what groups of people are going to do when they come together, particularly children and young people. Well, and staff come to that as well. So venting or actually sharing something that's gone wrong is actually a really good, healthy thing to do. So do not be afraid to actually say, it's just not been a good day. It's just not been a good lesson. But what if something really dreadful goes wrong? What if you're being spoken to in an inappropriate manner by a colleague? Or what if you're in a tricky situation with a parent? Never ever underestimate that your school will and should have a support network in place for yourself as well as obviously the safeguarding of children and young people. And if you don't know who belongs to your support network, who is leading X, Y, and Z, then it's at this point in this academic year, because people will have changed roles, that you need to check out who they are. Always, always remember that good friends will support you through thick and thin, and they will be your colleagues who will be able to just give you that nudge up, just to remind you of that pocket the passion of why it is that you came into education. So do not underestimate the power of support networks. And let's go into my favourite thing. These are a few of my favourite things, which are the 3 C's. Now, why do I love the 3 C's? The 3 C's are what I believe is the core to teacher development. And this is collaboration, communication, and creativity. We so underestimate the power of collaborating with others. You may have just the most amazing thinking brain, okay? And you may think, I've got these wonderful, wonderful ideas. But actually, when you find out that somebody else has got even better or more exciting ideas than you had, or they're different ideas, but they're just as exciting as what you have, and you never even thought about that, collaborating with another colleague or groups of colleagues is absolutely infectious. Because that whole idea of collaboration with ideas, collaboration with planning, collaboration with talking through difficult strategies is unbelievably brilliant. I have a friend where we call each other quite regularly and we put the world to rights, but we collaborate with great ideas. I say, oh, have you thought about this? And she said, yes, but have you also thought about this? And suddenly what I find we're doing is we're collaborating on a topic, maybe just the two of us initially, we're collaborating on a topic, and suddenly there are these brilliant, fascinating, exciting ideas that we can put into practice in our classrooms and globally as well, just because we both think differently. So can you imagine if you collaborate with not just one person, but you collaborate with lots of people? My gosh, it will be so exciting that you will have so many things to be able to roll out, to share, to vent, to take ideas, to play with ideas, to collaborate on single topics, to collaborate on a thought or an event. I mean, it's just fantastic. But the key thing is from the collaboration is that we go into really clear communication. How are you going to communicate your amazing ideas? How are you going to communicate these with each other when you're teaching every day, loads of lessons, need to get that work-life balance right? So are you going to do it just digitally? Are you going to communicate through maybe a shared server on your school website or school area, or whatever it is? You need to get that communication right. But don't overburden yourself to the point where, remember that all devices off, so that you communicate late in the evening. You may even want to communicate by just writing something down on a post-it very quickly and sending it down to somebody's room. You may want to put a note up on the staff room wall and say, oh, so-and-so, can you come and see me at X time? Let's have a cup of tea. Let's discuss X, Y, and Z. That communication is crucial. And from that, the creativity. People's ideas are not always unique, you know. Because generally ideas come from something else that we've either seen or we've heard or we've experienced. And it's very difficult to say that something is truly yours or that you have created it. But because generally what happens, so a seed will have set and you will have taken that idea from somewhere else, but you will be creative in adapting it, in changing it, in pushing it in another direction. in thinking how it can be applied in different scenarios, different lessons, or different areas. So always remember that the 3 C's, the collaboration, the communication, and the creativity, is the absolute foundation of internal progress within pedagogy and practice in your schools. And if you'd like to find out a little bit more, obviously, either get in touch with us under the heading of the Art of Great Teaching, which is what this is with VIMA, and we'll be able to share some more of our experiences with you. So this whole use of social media. Now, I mentioned to you earlier on about all devices off, and that was in relation to specific workload. What if part of your CPD is to actually tap into people globally so that you can be more creative, so that you can gather new, different ideas, and that you can maybe even have some free resources or an amazing discussion with a fantastic global educator or somebody in a different country. Then this is where using social media effectively and impactfully can be absolutely amazing. Tapping into professionals globally is now one of the greatest CPT tools for educators. I myself am a particular lover of using Twitter, but there will be other global educators that will choose to use Facebook or Instagram, or maybe to use shared Google Drive. There will be some even who will tap into each other by setting up WhatsApp groups. And the list could just go on and on and on forever. But tapping into social media and connecting with people is invaluable. Why? It's going to help you with your workload, okay? There may be people on there who are struggling in a particular area, and that you will be able to share something with them, and in turn they will probably share something with you. I've seen teachers who have said, I need to be teaching, for example, a topic on space, and I'm doing it with year 5, and I've got limited resources, can anybody help me? And suddenly the sharing of amazing resources literally within half an hour from global educators is absolutely phenomenal. So this teacher gets loads of ideas, loads of resources to be able to think about, to implement in this topic of space. And actually, after a little while, she or he can come away from that social media platform and have a little bit of that life balance, because already she's managed to gather all these things. And it isn't about taking other people's resources, okay? It isn't about taking somebody's slides and saying, oh yes, I saw this and I thought it was a good idea, so I'm going to run it off as my own, because unfortunately some people are doing that. What it's about is embracing the amazing brains of other educators who can support, who can collaborate, and who can communicate in a very effective way through this effective use of social media. So as you know, we are at VIMA Edu on Twitter, VIMA Education on Facebook, and also we're on LinkedIn. I'm at Music Mind on Twitter, and you'll be able to find all the Twitter handles of the other VIMA consultants if you go onto the website. So use it wisely, use it carefully, embrace also maybe some edu Twitters who end up having a few sort of, shall we say, pedagogical disagreements, and you don't need to get involved in that unless you want to, but you can step away from it too. And stepping away from it sometimes is a really good, sensible thing to do. So social media has a thumbs up for me. The next thing that I want you to think about in developing your ideas for professional development and tips for you to become a more enhanced teacher is about teacher growth mindset. Now, how many of you over the last couple of years have worked relentlessly on delivering amazing, brilliant lessons with your children and young people with regards to growth mindset? oh yes, you need to be able to do this so that you can become resilient, and don't stick in these ways so that you're fixed. And if you fall flat on your face into the learning pit, you know that you can either find your way out yourself or somebody can help you. But actually, there isn't that much out there about teacher growth mindset. So what do we actually mean by teacher educator growth mindset? Now, I'm going to share something with you, okay? I love routines. I just love routines. I think routines are great. And I've got certain ways that I like to do things, and I like to stick into time, but I'm very creative. I'm willing to take on board new ideas. And there are some things then that bother me. And I guess that the things that bother me, or the things that I'm not comfortable with, that I put myself into a bit of a fixed mindset. So don't go telling anybody else, but I've got a problem with spreadsheets. Now, I'm not going to say that I hate spreadsheets, but I'm going to say to you that I really quite dislike spreadsheets. Now, I wonder why that is. I think it's because I really am not very good at spreadsheets at all. So why would I be saying, oh no, I'm not going to do spreadsheets, I'm not going to do this? Because I'm scared of them. And I'm scared of them because I feel I'm not very good at them. Until once I reached out to somebody and I said, I just can't be doing this spreadsheet. I can't be doing with these columns. I'm not sure what all these signs mean. And they gave me a very simple 3-step approach and said, I'm going to show you something, Nina. I want you to try it. Then I want you to play and practice. And then I want you to be really daring and have a go at some other things that you may not know about. So I embraced-ish this idea that I could be okay with spreadsheets because somebody had given me this confidence. So they shared this 3-point idea with me, and I gave it a go, and I still thought I was pretty rubbish at spreadsheets. And then this person wasn't around, and I couldn't get hold of this person, and I started getting really a little bit anxious because I thought, I'm going to mess it all up and I'm going to lose all my work and my whole world is just going to fall apart. But it didn't, because what happened was there was a little friend inside the computer that kept asking me, do you really want to do that? And I thought, do I? Thought maybe I don't. So I either pressed cancel or no until I'd found the way myself. Finding that way either through the help button or going to that very special place, you know, YouTube, or maybe even asking that Google platform, or maybe even asking my friend that starts with an S and ends with an I on my digital device on how best I could get myself out of this sticky situation. Well, I'm pleased to inform you that I now have a growth mindset towards spreadsheets. Why? Because I feel I have developed my own skills. I feel quite confident in the fact that I can do a little more than what I could do before. I'm still not brilliant, but because I got myself in a state where there was nobody to help me, I needed to build this personal resilience to say, you can do this, Nina, you can do this little step at a time, and there's nobody to help you, but you come on, you can do it because you know you need to do it. And so actually being on my own and trying to really work things out became the new me. And now I adopt that whole thing of the spreadsheet scenario into many other things. So if somebody says to me, you know, do you want to do, oh no, I really do. Oh yeah, well, we'll give that a go. And often our children will say, oh no, 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 I don't like that, I'm not going to do it. It's because they're really fearful of it. And how many of you, as practicing educationalists, will also be fearful of certain things because you may not get it right first time? So I'm all for global educator growth mindset. And next time you're having a little bit of trouble with something and you say, nah, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do it this way, and this is always the way I've done it, I just want you to remember the word spreadsheets, because pocket my passion, because now my passion is this whole idea of the new leaner growth mindset, all to do with the fact that there was nobody around to help me with my troublesome spreadsheets. So try and move yourself into a global education way of developing yourself and really taking risks. And what's the worst thing that could happen? You fall flat on your face, not into a mud puddle, but you fall flat on your face, you pick yourself up and you go, that really didn't work for me, so I'm just going to have to find another way. And there always is another way. There are many different paths to final destination, so let's embrace this teacher growth mindset too. Now, when you're having that difficult road, and you're not really sure where you're going, and it's a tricky lesson, or it's a tricky week, or it's a tricky month, and that workload is getting on top of you, and you're becoming a little bit overwhelmed because, of course, we are so brilliant at creating our own anxiety. We make it for ourselves. Did you know that? Nobody else does it for us. We, our brilliant brains and our bodies, make our own anxiety. But I just want to remind you of this. Sometimes you just need to think about keeping going. Sometimes the most difficult roads can lead to the most beautiful destinations. You may fall down a couple of potholes, like those spreadsheet things, or you may be finding that actually you haven't got your point across in a staff meeting, or you're really not sure what this data really means. But if you keep going through personal growth mindset, looking at your support networks, tapping into social media, the 3 C's, do you remember what they are? Yeah, collaboration, communication, and creativity. Your 3 P's, you plan, prepare, and pocket your passion. Eventually, when you get there, it may not be the most beautiful sight you've seen, but the relief that you will have, that you will finally have got to a destination that you wanted to get to, that will be the most beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be scenery. It can be a very, very beautiful emotional feeling. So when the going gets tough, don't get out of the room, just keep going. And I want you to put things into perspective. Do you remember earlier on in the webinar, we spoke about getting that balance right? That balance where life and work were sort of just about moving together like that. And that work actually wasn't weighing you down too much, or maybe that you were being a bit slack and actually, life was weighing you down a bit much. So get that perspective right. And you need to stop, okay? You need to pause and you need to literally step back from what could be a tricky or difficult situation, or that mound of marking that you've got to do. And 1 or 2 minutes to step back and, put things into perspective could be your savior. And I think this picture in itself is quite good, actually, because I bet that pigeon is thinking, okay, where am I going to go to get my food next time? Okay, let me just have a look at the scenario here. Let me take the perspective in. Where's the best place for me to go? But I really need to think about this before I fly off and go in for my target. And that's what you need to do. I'm not saying you need to become a pigeon, okay? What I'm saying is that you need to really step back and put things into perspective. Because things are going to be tough sometimes and will be tough. They may be tough because you've created the tough things for yourself, or they may be tough because people are putting on you too much and you haven't yet quite mastered how to say no. So take that perspective, and next time I want you to think of that pigeon who's just having a look over the whole city about where it is that he's actually going to land. Now, I am guessing, actually, just by looking at that, that's probably New York. But if I'm incorrect, maybe some of you will come back and let me know where it actually is. And one of the things, of course, that you need to be doing, this is my absolute most favourite tip for you, okay? I really want you to celebrate every day your personal and your professional achievements, okay? For me, I need to get up in the morning and I need to ask myself, what's my purpose today? So if my purpose is to do X, Y, and Z, once I've achieved X, I have a sort of secret little celebratory moment. I go, or I may just have that sort of half a biscuit, or I may just have one of those, yes, woohoo moments. So whatever it is, whether you keep a diary or whether you just do a simple sort of celebratory dance or put your hands in the air, or you just feel just a little bit chuffed with yourself, celebration is very, very good, because what you're doing is you are A, savouring magic moments, B, you've got that pocketing your passion, and C, celebration is really good for our self-esteem and confidence. Every time you say to a child, well done, I love what you've done there, you have no idea how much you're building on their personal well-being. So celebrate you and the little things that you do every day. Even if they're big celebrations, jump up and down with joy or just have a moment. Depends on your personality. But your professional and your personal achievements are absolutely crucial. I won't at this point put the song Celebration on, but if that's your fancy, then that's absolutely fine. Find your own way of celebrating you and your achievements. And before we round off this webinar, it's a very personal message from me to you. There's a reason why there's a beautiful yellow sunflower on the screen. And that particular yellow, where the leaves are, is from research, is the most powerful, emotive, well-being colour of the world. Please, please, when things are really, really tough and you feel as if you are slowly and slowly sort of just losing that passion, or maybe things are getting you down and you're feeling very overwhelmed, I want you to be really kind to yourselves. I want you to really, really take a moment and ask yourself, what's important right now? Is it my health and well-being, or is it actually getting in tomorrow to do the job, to be as brilliant as the school want me to be, but actually I won't be my best self? I want you to be kind to yourself. It's not being selfish to be kind. Because more than anything, as L'Oreal would say, be kind to yourself because you are worth it. You're a brilliant and magical human being, and we'd like to keep you that way in this world. So those are some very simple back to school tips from me, Nina Jackson. I'm a VIMA teaching and learning consultant. I'm an author and a keynote speaker, and I would love to come to your school to spread the happiness, to be with you and to share amazing pedagogy and practice. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, then please, please tap in to VIMA Education. I hope you've had a great, great evening. It's been rather marvellous connecting with you globally. And right now, I think, Costa, you're going to come back in and share some things as well.
Thank you very much, Nina.
You're very welcome.
A lot to think about and reflect. And we often say at VIMA Education, it's important to be reflective practitioners and think about how we do things and take time for ourselves, but step back and think about how we can how things are going for us, and also where we want to go. We have a couple of questions that have come in for you, and just to give some people some more tips and strategies. We've got Martha, who's the head of department and loves the idea of the 3 C's.
Yeah.
Can you just give Martha some tips about how she can start to adopt those with her department? Just a
Okay.
few tips for each one.
Okay. Hi,
But you,
Martha, and thank you for your question. I think it's very valid point. So, how would you go about this collaboration, communication, and creativity? Whether you begin it in a staff meeting or whether you send a little note to members in your department and say, right, okay, can we have a moment to take a think about this? Okay, it might be a key question or a key topic. Then you can give them options of how they want to respond. Either send a note back to you, either via email, or actually put it in a shared drive or a shared folder, or have a small gathering together, which is the most impactful thing, where you come together and maybe even just for sort of 10 minutes, gather those ideas from other people. Okay, so collaborate together and make sure that you've taken this person's idea, that person's idea, another person's idea. Have a discussion, first of all, about the ideas. This is where you will see great growth happening, because as you all begin to communicate with each other in that physical environment, people will be bouncing ideas off each other. But of course, with regards to that work-life balance, what are you going to do? You're not going to run over that 10 minutes, surely, are you? So you're then going to say, okay, let's move this forward. Let's continue the collaboration and the communication by setting up this file. Drop the ideas in when you can. Be creative in your approaches. Maybe you want to send me a video, maybe you want to send an audio link, it could be a web link, it could be anything at all. Let's put it in one area and then let's schedule another collaborative session where we come together so we can begin to build on these marvelous ideas. And I hope that's a sort of a stepping idea for you, really, Martha, and others of you, to just get the ball rolling. But if you do need any further tips, then get in touch with us at Beam and we can respond to you via email.
and can I just say that over the last 4 years, what we have done at various times in the year, we've sent some morale boosters, and I know many of you have been in touch with us to say that they've been really useful in giving you top tips and things that you can do within your school to keep morale high, and part of the celebration really that Nina was talking about. So if you go onto our teacher research corner and our news and media page, you will see some of those morale boosters, and feel free to use them as well. Another question that's come in terms of well-being being more than just a buzzword, because we are hearing a lot about it at the moment. So we've often talked about how we can really embed well-being in our policies, in our school policies. So could you give any examples there about how we can look at this on a bigger level?
Okay, so I'm going to make this really simple for all of you. Okay, we talk about well-being with regards to self-well-being and well-beings of community, but within a school, well-being has to start with whole community cohesion. Okay, some really, really simple things. You've got to make people feel valued. You've got to make people feel, this is children, staff, parents, everybody. You've got to make people feel that they belong to something. You then have to have an inclusive approach so that each person is valued for who and what they are, regardless of maybe having a special educational need or maybe having a disability or whatever, that we embrace humanity within our community. If our community is cohesive and that we make people feel valued, that they are connected and that they belong, these are the foundations of lifelong well-being for everybody. But we tend to forget that actually these are the foundations that should be in every single school before you start thinking about, oh, well, we need to write this in our well-being policy. That is well-being. If you've got people feeling that they're wanted, feeling that they matter, that they're connected, that they're not lonely and that they belong, that's where the foundation is.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. And that, I think that's a really important point that we often talk about, that well-being is more than just an activity that you run with your staff. It's about how you approach things in your school, from the meetings that you have, to the reports that people have to write, to your assessment policies in terms of marking, all of these things. You build your well-being policies around the things that you want your staff to do, and people feeling valued and having a voice.
Yeah,
Really,
and respectful relationships with everybody.
yeah. There's just a couple of things that I think I want to just mention on wellbeing. If you're not aware, our Teacher Research Corner has lots of articles, resources for wellbeing. We also have some information about Carol Dweck's growth mindset, so do have a look at that if you're not familiar with some of this research. We are uploading stuff onto the website weekly, so do take a look at that. And I think that's it on well-being. If you do like, if you are enjoying the webinar, should I say, that we're offering, one of our aim is to connect as many educators from around the world as possible. If you want us to cover a particular topic, then do get in touch with us so that we can organise that for you. What Nina is showing right now as well is a couple of, Nina, if you go back a couple of slides from what our new website is going to look at. We are going to have a dedicated resources page, which is completely free for you to download and use and share with colleagues, which is one of the things that is really important to us, is that we are sharing and collaborating with each other, no matter where you might be teaching and the type of school that you're in. And lastly, if you go to the next page, these are just some of the things that are coming up from us. We do work in on a range of different schools, so if there is a particular training need, then obviously do get in touch with us. I think that's it from us this evening. We will be back in a month's time. Our next webinar is scheduled for October. It's going to be on governance, and we will be sending more information on that over the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, Nina, for a delightful session, informative session, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.